On this week's show, just when you thought it was safe to not talk about Marvel, a heavyweight matchup of Spielberg's, and with Sony, is it out with the old and in with the old? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to our shows, but it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He's the man with the plan when it comes to Humanica Media. You gotta check out everything that's going on today at humanicamedia.com, Humanica Media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Hey, I'm just currently reading up on my rumor mill about the James Bond director. Whether or not this one sticks, we'll have to find out, but I like the prospects here.
So tell everybody out there a little bit more about the first U.S.-born director ever to be a part of the James Bond franchise.
Well, it's Cary Fukunga. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Danny Boyle backed out because of a quote-unquote creative differences. So now Cary Fukunga is stepping in to take over the director's role, but we'll see if it sticks because this film seems to have a notoriety for not being able to cling to directors very well, especially since Sam Mendes decided he didn't want to direct it. So I'm curious to see how it's going to do. I imagine this will be the last Daniel Craig Bond film, but who knows, man. Also, I just want it to happen though. I just want it. They've been talking about it for so long. I want it to happen. I want to watch it. I want to see it, but it's anybody's guess if this is actually going to happen.
Can you give me a Fukunaga?
Fukunga, is that how you say it?
No, Fukunanda. Now you got me saying Fukunaga.
Oh, Fukunaga.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Is that better?
That'll be put in the separate slots. So yes, it is, like you said, Cary Fukunaga. He is going to be, like I said, the first U.S. born director that's going to be a part of the James Bond franchise. I personally am going to be curious in the next few days how the people overseas in the UK, our friends over there with all the great stations and all their great listeners over there, everybody in the Great Britain, UK, everyone around Europe, how they're going to foresee this change, this change in direction when it comes to directors, that if they're going to be accepting of it, because like you said, this is something that's very big. This is something that hopefully will get the James Bond movie back on track, because like you said, it will be the last Daniel Craig film. But I don't know if everybody overseas is going to be ecstatic about what's going on with this choice, because it is something out of left field. Now, we've talked about all these different James Bonds that could be coming together, as far as Idris Elba or any, or Tom Hardy, or any one of the number of people that have been rumored to be replacing Daniel Craig as we go down to more James Bond movies down the road. So it'd be interesting to see where that lines up as far as a new James Bond movie is concerned. But we've got a great show for you today. We've got Rob McCallum standing by in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. He and I are going to go mano-a-mano over the Battle of the Spielbergs as far as our choices for which movies from the Spielberg library that we like the most. Then, of course, we also have Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. He's going to be previewing Week 3 in the NFL with some tips and some player injury updates and some suggestions for your fantasy football team. And then Josh and I will be coming on the back end to talk about Sony. A couple of things went on. A couple of announcements were made at the Tokyo Game Show that have us, well, actually kind of reflecting in one sense, and also maybe hopeful for the future. We don't, there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of excitement over one of the announcements that was made, something that was probably very I guess, something that was very predictable, something that you could have seen coming a mile away. It was about time for it to happen. And unfortunately, with both announcements, it's something that was going to be something that with both announcements that were bound to happen. So we're going to talk about that on the back end of the episode. But first, Josh, it is Marvel. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water again, Marvel makes some big news all week long when it comes to being all over the place, and it isn't even a time for a Marvel movie to come out.
Yeah, I noticed that they're talking about their plans to take over the X-Men universe, and they're being very who was it that there is Bob Iger. They're talking to him about what's
Yeah,
going on with
the
that.
Hollywood Reporter, that we're going to discuss on our Sunday show, the entire interview in regards to Bob Iger's thoughts on the Marvel universe, the X-Men universe, Star Wars universe, and so much more. One thing I wanted to ask you when it comes to the Marvel situation that went on this week, not only was there a great trailer from Captain Marvel this week, which we'll go in on here in a sec, but also some great television announcements as well in regards to their streaming service that's upcoming and ABC as well. We'll start off with the ABC one. In fact, that they're hiring one of the writers from Wonder Woman to develop a Marvel TV show for ABC about female superheroes. This is something we've talked about as far as a movie sense when it comes to the Avengers. So what do you think is going to be in mind as ABC has tapped Alan Heinberg, who, like I said, penned Wonder Woman? He is going to be actually making up something for ABC when it comes to a Marvel female-led superhero television show.
It depends on which hero we're talking about and how it's written. I would want to know more details because honestly, they haven't done. We've discussed this before. They haven't done a great job of actually building those heroes up in the MCU itself. So it'd be something where they would have to generate a lot of hype around it, a lot of hype involving like the hero's backstory, where they come from, something that makes them stand out. That would make me want to be interested in seeing something more from them. Because from what I understand, it's not just the female heroes like Scarlet Witch they're looking into; it's like Loki and other side characters too. So,
Well, that was actually something separate I was going to talk to you about.
sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, it just depends on how they do it, who it is, what kind of hype they build around it. I like the idea of it, but it would have to be executed well enough for me to be interested in it. Because right now, we've talked about this before. Like I have a hard time tracking so many Marvel properties. I have I love the stuff that's on Netflix, but the stuff that's on ABC, stuff that's on ABC, Hulu, stuff like that. Like I have a hard time keeping track of it all. And I can do the movies and maybe one extra series, but as far as like the Disney streaming service mixed with the stuff on ABC, mixed with the stuff on Hulu, it's so much for me to keep track of. So, and especially since we've already seen these characters on the big screen, they would have to have justice done in order for me to retain interest in them. How do you feel about it though?
I think is something that ABC needs to look into. The first year of Agent Carter was very good for them. Obviously, did very well. Unfortunately, they were not able to retain that type of enthusiasm and momentum for season 2, and unfortunately got canceled. But for me, there is something there with ABC if they do it right. Inhumans was not exactly the best thing in the world for them, but they have a great writer in Alan Heinberg. Obviously, he has a successful track record with Wonder Woman, and to be going ahead and given the chance to go and develop a series based in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with something like all the great female superhero women that are out there, or just taking from one that we haven't seen so far on screen yet, is really a good opportunity, I think, for ABC. And ABC needs to continue to try and reach into those Marvel properties, because as a network that's running behind, NBC and CBS as far as ratings are concerned. They need to go ahead and start. They need to go ahead and keep throwing those darts to seeing what sticks with audiences. Now, something that we also are interested in is the, I guess, heavy rumor that's out there that was reported by all the trade magazines, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and whatnot, that when the Disney streaming service becomes live, that one of the things that they're looking to do is some of those other characters within the Marvel Cinematic Universe that have popularity, like Loki, like Scarlet Witch, maybe even a Hawkeye, and some others, they might be involved in their own television series that's going to go straight to the network. Your thoughts on that, as far as does that enhance your probability of getting the actual service? Is that something that's a good idea? So far for Netflix, it's been kind of mixed results. I know it's led to a lot of great viewership, but they've talked about, you with all the with Luke Cage, with Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Daredevil, Punisher, the Defenders, but there is not going to be most likely a season 2 Defenders, which gives me some warning and some apprehension that they can be the same kind of they can see the same kind of success on a Disney format with all those MCU heroes.
Honestly, man, like I mentioned earlier, I would really need a reason to get into it because right now I barely have enough time to watch the Marvel films going out to see them in theaters. So I would have to have a reason to get invested and to go out, not just go out to the theaters to watch these, but sit down and spend hours in front of my TV watching this. Like I watched the Marvel series on Netflix, but really like I only watch them probably about a month after they come out and when I have a weekend to just sit there and do nothing. I actually have to schedule a weekend to do nothing to sit there and watch these. So, like I said, it would have to be a good story, have to be something that really captures my interest. It would have to be something that would justify paying the whatever the cost of the Disney streaming service is, and it would have to tie into the overall MCU in order to keep me interested enough to watch it from start to finish.
I hear you as well, but I think there is going to be a lot more identity that a lot of people can find with a Loki, with a Scarlet Witch, with a Hawkeye, with a Falcon, with whoever it is that they want to go ahead and have these these series build around. For me, I think it works out a lot better because I don't think they've given enough love to those Netflix shows. I think it's sometimes they really don't have the quality and the feel of something that should be on a larger plane like I believe they should. And for that reason, it just sometimes takes me out of it. I know the Iron Fist, that first season was just so bad. It was really hard to get into Iron Fist season 2. And Josh, as we've talked about with the Defenders, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, from various points in times, it's been such an uneven ride, especially even with the Defenders as well. It's been such an uneven ride as far as watching it. I just don't get that same sense of quality, time, care, and love that you see in the MCU as far as the films are concerned. And that's like apples to oranges in some ways, but they've also don't seem to give the same kind of love as, say, maybe the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or even Agent Carter back in those days. They just seem to be a little bit better presentation wise. And I think if they go ahead and give that kind of love to those shows that are heading towards the Disney streaming service, it might be actually a little bit more invigorating for a lot of those people that are so familiar with the MCU that they would want to watch it and eventually get the service, and eventually watch those shows.
Right, I agree with you. I was not so big on Agent Carter. I felt it was kind of cheesy, but if they did something to make it feel like it was not a waste of time to watch, something that specifically tied it into the overall MCU, maybe, having a cameo from another hero, even with the Netflix shows, like it would go a long way if they, even if they in Iron Fist season 2, they did mention like the Baxter building, but even if they like had a mentioned by name the Avengers and stuff like that, it would go a long way into making people want to watch it, making people feel like it was more connected to the MCU as a whole instead of like these these separate properties. So that's the one thing I always liked about what Marvel was doing as opposed to what the CW is doing, but these days it feels like they are both very distant from each other. So if they were to do something that would tie them in, I know they, the idea between the Disney properties is to have the heroes from the movies have their own shows, but if they were to do something that showed that, this has repercussions in the greater MCU and it does exist in the greater MCU, I think it would go a long way with fans as opposed to just having this like, oh, hey, we're throwing this out there. You can watch it, don't watch it. I would need to be motivated in some way to sit there and watch it.
I hear you, and absolutely, that is something that for a lot of people they have to have that same buy-in as well. But to me, it actually sends a good sign that if they're going to be willing enough to do that, and the Star Wars stuff that they're going to produce that's original for that streaming service, and all that other and all the other things that Disney is going to bring to the table, even possibly some X-Men stuff and some other stuff relating to the Marvel universe that we haven't seen so far, Fantastic Four and whatnot, that could be added into the mix. The possibilities for this Disney streaming service being something that we want to see and we want to get are much higher than a lot of other streaming services that are come out, especially since the DC service came out. That's not as I guess inviting to a lot of people. The other services are out there from either what Hulu, CBS, FX. They really cannot have as much, I guess, to offer as maybe the Disney streaming service can right up front with all the Disney fare and the Marvel fare and the Star Wars fare that they could throw in. So it could be something that really is attractive if it's done correctly and executed properly. The last thing I want to touch on when it comes to Marvel, because it's been quite a week for Marvel, and like that's something that Josh and I are going to be talking about as well on the Monday episode, is the conversation that was made in the Hollywood Reporter in regards to a interview with Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and his thoughts on pretty much all those properties that Disney oversees. We're going to talk about that on the Monday show. But the last thing we want to talk about right now when it comes to Marvel on this show is the trailer that finally dropped this week for Captain Marvel. Your thoughts on the timing, first off, before we actually get into the details and specifics of things we liked and didn't like about the Captain Marvel trailer.
I think it was good timing. It was about the time where everyone was wondering where the trailer was, what's going to happen, when are they going to drop it. This was about the same time we got a Black Panther trailer last year, if I remember correctly. But it was time. It was time to drop it. Time to give us something, even if it's just a teaser. But they dropped a full trailer, which was cool. But yeah, I think it was enough to quench our curiosity, but still enough to keep us wanting to know more about it. So I guess we'll in the coming months we'll know a little bit more about this last Marvel film before Infinity War Part 2.
And speaking of that, let's start off with and speaking of the Captain Marvel trailer, let's start off by asking let me start off by asking you this question. Does it make you nostalgic and want to go to a Blockbuster video store anytime soon?
That's funny because I was the first time I watched it, I was actually teaching and I showed one of my students and they were like, "Oh, I didn't know there were any Blockbusters still around." I'm like, "There's not. There's just this movie takes
There's one. There is one left on the
yeah,
planet.
in Alaska or something, right? If I remember correctly." Honestly, like I miss it. All this. I know we're gonna chat about this on Sunday's show about the PS1 Classic or whatever, but I was thinking about
About no, we're gonna chat tonight about the PS1
hey,
Classic.
we'll chat about it tonight. But like I was thinking about how back when Blockbuster was still open, I would go and keep re-renting Musashi Brave Fencer Musashi, and like those were the days for me, man. I'd go and keep re-renting that game, and I'd sit there and I'd read the covers of movies, see what's hot, and like if something was, it was weird because it's just the idea of seeing that something was desired by people, and if I had one, I was like, yes, sweet, I'm gonna go home and watch this. But yeah, no, it made me feel nostalgic. I think that's one big thing working for this film is it's a nostalgia flick at heart, but
Hold on a second. I'm stalking the actual check-in desk right here, waiting for a movie because wasn't on the shelf, but I'm really waiting for this movie, so I'm waiting for if it gets turned in. I'm just like waiting for a few minutes longer. All right, it's there. It's coming in. It's coming in. All right. What about Bob? All right, got to see that. All right, got
Right.
it, got it.
Somebody's bound to turn one in. No, I think the movie has a lot of nostalgia going for it, and it to me personally, I don't know about you, but it feels like what what the Green Lantern flick should have been.
I agree with you on that. It actually feels a lot more fun than that flick, and I think probably Ryan Reynolds would probably agree with you. Would agree with you on that one as well. You notice when she did crash in the initial part of the trailer, what section did she crash into? If you notice carefully on the left-hand corner, top left-hand corner, it says action, and it's got an arrow. It's almost like pointing directly on her. So there's that kind of little thing that's right there. I'm sure there's a lot of other cookies and nuggets, and I've seen other videos that break it down entirely. And some of them, it's funny because on the same clip and the same scene, all these major sites, one will have it this way that they think this is here, and the other one, another one will have it that, oh no, it's this person and this person, or it's this person and that person, and it's two totally different answers. So it's kind of funny how all these breakdown videos don't have a uniform type deal 100%. It is a pretty good trailer in my opinion. Overall, I thought it was very enjoyable. I think it sets up her very well as far as the type of past that she had. Maybe it's dreams, maybe it's not. What she was doing now as far as the Star Force. But before we go into a little bit more on the trailer itself, can you give a little backstory on Captain Marvel herself?
Yeah, she's a human Kree experiment. So, what I can say is that she was, picked up by the Kree and they experimented on her, which they showed a little bit of in the trailers. But basically, that's how she got her power. She was a human Kree experiment, and eventually she does join the Star Force or whatever you want to call it, and they are like the Green Lantern Corps of the not United, but the MCU. So I honestly like I she's one character that I haven't really dug too far into as far as my comic book reading, and I really want to, but I'm curious how they're going to handle her because I know like she exists in the same realm of like the Silver Surfer and Nova and heroes like that. So and I saw in the trailers they're finally introducing the Kree. How's that going to work? I hope they don't go the secret invasion route because that seems like a cheap thrill to me, but who knows?
And the Krill and the Kree, I'm sorry, and the Kree are beings that can shapeshift into different beings, either inanimate or animate, as we saw and witnessed on the trailer when Captain Marvel struck an old lady, and you're asking yourself, why did she strike an old lady? But most likely the factor is that she was a Kree.
Right, I like how there are all these articles popped up on the internet after that because they really just had to justify why she was punching an old lady.
One of the things that is going to bother me straight up is the Star Force unit looks really tough. Like you said, it's like the Green Lantern Corps in the DC era, in the DC realm. But I want to ask you this, because Thanos is now right. He's wreaking havoc. He's doing what he needs to do. He's snapping his fingers. Where is the Star Force in all this? Do you think they set up something as far as a destruction of the Star Force, a mass, I don't want to say a mass, just a mass destruction of the Star Force of some type to set up the fact that they weren't there at the time of Thanos to give them a hand?
I don't want to say that they knew about him in the film. I don't think that's maybe, who knows? There hasn't been any like rumors or whispers of Thanos being a thing in the film, but they showed Ronan the Accuser. I think there was something going on there. Maybe there's a war between the Kree and the Skrull, or the Kree were trying to. Maybe this is going to tie in slightly to Secret Invasion. The Kree were trying to take over Earth or whatever, and then the Captain Marvel steps in and tries to break it up. And a big question for a lot of people is where has she been all this time? Why, with all this stuff, Thanos especially, with all this stuff going on in the MCU and the the greater galaxy as a whole, where has she been? So I think that this movie is going to answer that question and maybe give us a little more insight into why she's such an important character in the event.
Or and also the Star Force, the entire Star Force as well. Where are they at? That to me is a bigger question, because if
Right.
they are a Star Force, they should have been there protecting the galaxy in some sort, or at least have a knowledge of Thanos, since there is a tie-in with Ronan the Accuser in there as well. Being you only got a brief glimpse of him in the Captain Marvel trailer, but he is in there. He is in the movie, and he does play a part, I believe, as part of the Star Force crew. Is that correct?
Yeah, he looks like it. Maybe and again, maybe this will show like his path to madness or whatever. A big question is, will we just be seeing Captain Marvel in the next Infinity War, or will we be seeing Star Force as well? Who knows? That's a big question. Where's everybody been for all this time? And I think that's what a lot of fans are waiting to see answered.
One thing I want to ask you is the de-aging process on Nick Fury and Agent Coulson. I think it worked very well. I know a lot of people were really excited for that, and I didn't hear any laughs. I didn't see anything online as far as anything ridiculing the process. I think it looked really good as far as how they were able to de-age Nick Fury and Agent Coulson. Nick Fury has both eyes for the moment in the Captain Marvel flick. Your thoughts on emphasizing Nick Fury's role, and also to an extent Agent Coulson as well, and bringing them back both big time into the foray? Is not only Agent Coulson, but Nick Fury's had kind of like a off to the sideline deal for the past couple movies. So is it nice that they brought him back to be a major part of the telling of the Captain Marvel story?
Yeah, I hope they keep it up. I feel like we didn't really get the closure with his character that we deserved. I am stoked to see Coulson back in it. I feel like with Agents of Shield, he was just kind of demoted to daytime soap drama character, as opposed to like the major MCU player that we came to know and love up to the first Avengers film. So I am stoked to see both of them back in it, kind of see what happens to them, and I hope that this leads to more parts for them further on. And as far as like Nicholas Fury goes, I hope maybe in the Infinity War Part 2 we'll be able to see not just what happens to him, but see him kind of finish out his role as the curator of the Avengers team.
I think there's still a lot of life left in the Nick Fury character. Personally, I still think that there could be a lot of things done for his character, and I think he can go a long way. But like you said, it could be the end for all of those characters from the first part, except for maybe someone like Black Widow, or even to an extent Hawkeye, if they're talking about doing a movie for her and possibly even a TV series for him. One last thing when it comes to the Captain Marvel trailer: Captain Marvel herself, Brie Larson, her performance as far as within that trailer, whatever gets kept in, whatever gets taken out on the final picture, we don't know yet, because Marvel always loves to throw in that stuff. Same thing with Star Wars, as far as scenes in there that weren't ultimately put into the final film. My thoughts on it is that even though she sounds a little bit soft spoken, I think it's still very, very powerful for her to be in this type of film. I think Brie Larson does an effective job so far conveying not only the confusion as far as where her backstory is, what was her detail, is she human, is she not human, but also the powers that she has, as far as from what we've seen in the brief moments in the Captain Marvel trailer. Your thoughts on Brie Larson so far to this point after watching the trailer? Is she going to be, in your opinion, right now, an effective Captain Marvel? I think so, but I want to hear your thoughts.
No, I agree. Like I said before, it's everything about the movie is still very vague, but just from what I saw in the trailers, I feel like she really captures the emotion of the character very well, and it's she is the strong female lead that we needed in the MCU up to this point. And I don't really have a lot to say about how she handles the role, but from what I've seen in the trailers, I think that she's going to do okay with it, and I think that this is something that who knows, this is Marvel wants to sell action figures to little girls, and this could be really be the opportunity for them to do so. and hopefully build more hype around the potential not Scarlet Witch, but Scarlet Witch series, but also the Black Widow film.
And hopefully even an Avengers, all-female Avengers film, like has been rumored, like it's been talked about, we could see in a few years as well developing. There's lots of room in the universe for it. I'm all for it. I think it's going to be something great. And it could get started off right away with Captain Marvel when it comes out on March 8th. What are your thoughts on the entire week when it came to Marvel? Was it a week or not, with all the announcements, all the rumors, and the Captain Marvel trailer dropping as well? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Does it even make you nostalgic for Blockbuster Video? Share us your thoughts on that as well. Coming up next, we got Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. He's going to share his weeks in the preview upcoming for this weekend's action in the NFL. Right after that, we've got Rob McCallum in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. He's going to be talking about Steven Spielberg. Him and I are going to go at it as far as certain films versus other certain films in his library. Which ones do we like more? Which ones do we not like more? And which ones do we just get a headache over? We're going to share our thoughts on that and so much more. Plus, also at the back end, again, we've got Josh and I coming right back at you, talking about Sony's big deals, Sony's big announcements at the Tokyo Game Show this week. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. Want to thank so much Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. Once again, you can see you can catch full episodes on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so many other outlets. And also my good friend, Rob McCallum, in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. Full episodes of his show, Cosmic Crossfire, is on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel as well. So Josh, before I read off some great reviews and also give an update on a couple of the stations that are joining us, share some thoughts on what's going on with your awesome thing known as Humanica Media.
We just put out a new episode today about the education system, whether or not it needs an overhauling. But we're Topic Ocalypse is on the Podcast Radio Network every Tuesday night, and that's pretty much all we have to report at the moment.
Don't say that too loudly, because we are recent byproducts of the national education system.
Are we really?
Last time I checked on my diploma, and last time I heard about yours as well.
Well,
once again, it is the Topic Ocalypse show every week on the Podcast Radio Network. But go ahead.
That's it. That's all I was going to tell. All I had to say.
Before we head on out, want to actually thank also as well the great reviews that I've seen. The great reviews that you've given our Pop Culture Cosmos channel. Want to thank so much J Dutch, VFU, The Scope, Average Guys, and Jason Horton. All 5 stars. Cannot thank you enough for doing so. We truly appreciate it. And if you do, go ahead and send out a 5-star review on either Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you can rate and review us like that. We are truly humbled, truly appreciative, and we'll give you even a shout out right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PCC Multiverse. Just also want to thank real quickly SKO Radio Network, Radio Wacom, and Juice FM. SKO Radio Network, it now has also, if you want to listen to our back shows while you're going to work or you're at work, the SKO Radio Network is going to be playing not only our current shows every Monday and Friday, but also much of our library for 2018 is going to be on their radio shows, on their radio every day of the week. So check out our schedule on the Facebook page for Pop Culture Cosmos. We have a listing right there of not only SKO Radio Network, Radio Wacom, Juice FM, who we all just so appreciate of being part of, but every other single radio station that plays us, because we're being played 7 days a week on radio and are on over 30 different podcast networks. So Josh, on the way out, my friend, want to talk Sony at the Tokyo Game Show this week. Yes, there was a lot of cool trailers that came out, really cool, a lot of JRPGs, a lot of other games that are coming on the way. We saw some more Kingdom Hearts 3, which is supposedly still coming out in January. Keeping my fingers crossed. I want to ask you this, my friend. The first major announcement that they made, everybody went gaga over, but it wasn't really too much of a surprise because you knew it was coming. We've seen a mini Nintendo. We've seen another mini Nintendo. We've seen a mini Sega announced. And now we see a mini PlayStation now on its way with 20 built-in games. Your thoughts on the mini PlayStation on its way to consumers later this year?
I was initially excited about it, but then I heard that the disc tray was actually just for show and you can actually put games in there. So here's the thing, a lot of like, their big player that they announced was Final Fantasy 7, but again, we discussed Final Fantasy 7's coming out on the Switch here next or even this year, I think. But and a lot of people who have played the game still own it on the PlayStation in the original disc form, which I also do. I have a lot of PlayStation games that I would love to have a Sony console to play them on, but to me, there's just not really like I like Ridge Racer, sure. I like Tekken, sure. I want to know what else is coming out. If it's only 20 games, I really don't think it's worth the time. And I honestly don't feel like PlayStation is retro enough to be something that's worthy of having a retro console version made of it. That might just be me, but where do you stand on that?
I didn't like the fact that they only announced 5 games. If you only have 20 and you only announce 5 of them, that kind of is a bummer for $100. I mean, these are all old games we can go to our good friends at Retro City Games and buy and play off of a real PlayStation and play hundreds more. That to me is more appealing for around the same price, but it's going to be this cool little setup. It's a smaller version. I believe also to switch the games from game to games, you just have to hit the button on the actual mini console as well. Yes, it's going to have Final Fantasy 7, Wild Arms, Tekken 3, Ridge Racer Type 4, and Jumping Flash, which I know everyone is excited over, but that's only 5 of the 20. They could have gone ahead and already announced the rest of them. I think that would have gotten even more interest, but I've seen social media reactions to it. A lot of people are excited. I know when they announced it, I know Douglas Hoibu of Retro City Games, Salvador Villa of Mario Party Wars, and a lot of others were just so excited over it. So I guess I can't fault them for being very intrigued as far as what this is going to offer. For me, it's not that big of a deal. But then again, none of these mini consoles really get me going because I could just go out and play those old games instead and have a lot more fun because I would be playing a lot more games.
Yeah, and like you said, you could go down to Retro City Games, probably pick up a PlayStation 1 for 50, $60 and play, whatever games you already have or whatever games they have in stock. I just the fact that they're not telling us makes me believe that they don't really have a lot of faith in it. It's just kind of a cash grab. Uh, and the fact that everyone's like, oh, it's gonna sell out quick, it's gonna sell out quick. But here's the thing, too. We tend to forget that Sony had that was around the time the PlayStation came out. That was about the time when we first started experiencing licensing issues, with soundtracks and Sony didn't quite develop all this stuff. Like Sony's contract with Square, Sony's contract with a bunch of other companies. Like there were licensing issues, and that's why we haven't seen a lot of these games remastered or really talked about again because there's contract issues with them. So I can't think. I know like Dragoon Sony did, but like I know there's a lot of stuff that Sony didn't isn't solely responsible for developing. So I can't imagine the rest of the games coming out on this console being that great or worth paying the $100 for.
Hold on your hats for that Parappa the Rappa, my friend. I'm sure you'll like that, and I'm sure that's a great reason to get this PlayStation Mini. The other announcement that was made in regards to PlayStation at the Tokyo Game Show, which really got us, I don't want to say interested, but at least caught our eye, is the fact that Sony is announcing that they do plan to cease production finally for the PlayStation Vita in Japan next year, and it's by then it will already be done in the US as well. So it will be dead in 2019. It looks like it will be the last year for that. Your thoughts on the final death for the PlayStation Vita? And they have not announced that they're going to be returning to the portable front anytime soon.
I had actually read that they were looking into it. They were looking into the possibilities of it. They weren't actually working on something, but this has been a long time coming, I feel like, because there's all these other podcasts and programs be like, oh, we have a Vita re-release program or whatever, and they're trying to like
you're right. They said they were keeping their options open when it comes to portable gaming.
Right. So I'm not gonna say never, but I think with the Switch now, Sony has the option of the Switch is putting a lot of these games out, like Undertale. You can now is coming out on the Switch, and that was like a big PS Vita factor. So I don't know, man. Like I would love to see Sony re-release some of like the Vita and the PSP games on like a digital marketplace. They haven't even done like a classics marketplace on the PS4. So this could be something that could really drive people towards the PS5 when it finally gets announced and we get some like price points and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I don't have any thoughts on it in particular. A lot of the games that were on PSP that were good are now available on so many other platforms, but I it's sad to see the Sony handheld console go, but it seems like it's kind of been beaten to death, and Sony kind of wants to get it off their hands, it feels like to me.
To me, I think the PlayStation Vita got a raw deal. I actually still have mine. I actually have enjoyed it over the years, and just it was the games, the number of games, the quality of the games just never made it to the PlayStation Vita. The Vita itself, I thought, was far superior in quality to the 3DS as far as what it could do, the horsepower for it, and I thought it just was an overall better system. And the fact that it had the remote play to the PlayStation 4 was kind of a cool feature, something that we now easily see with the Nintendo Switch having that hybrid even more so than the Vita, but the Vita got it started. It just comes down to this. The Vita was something that I was given a raw deal. It was never given the love that I believe it should have been. And it was just ultimately a matter of time before the Vita would be going by the wayside and be part of the video game consoles of the past. So this is not unexpected. And it just will go down in history as a unit that could have been a lot more, but ended up, unfortunately, just not getting quite the love that everybody thought it could have been. It didn't get quite the love that it should have. It didn't get quite the love that it should have. What are your thoughts out there on the Sony announcements this week at the Tokyo Game Show? The impending death of the Vita, and also as well the impending arrival of the PlayStation Mini. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. So Josh, before we head on out, want to make sure everybody knows this weekend, if you are in the Las Vegas and Henderson area, we would truly appreciate you joining us on Saturday evening at Retro City Games and on Sunday at the Press Start Gaming Center. Both of those locations will be holding on Saturday, like I said, and Sunday, tournaments and challenges and a party night. And all the proceeds will be going to the victims of the Jacksonville tragedy last month. If you have a chance, step on over there. If you're in the Las Vegas area this weekend, once again, Saturday at our good friends at Retro City Games, and on Sunday at Press Start Gaming Center. It's going to be hosted by Mario Party Wars. We're going to be streaming from one of the locations at Retro City Games on Saturday. Hopefully we'll see you there. Come by, say hi. We'd love to hear from you. And like I said, all the proceeds, donations, all the fees, tournament fees, entry fees, anything of that nature will all be going to the victims of the Jacksonville tragedy. So hopefully all the Vegas gamers will unite and support this cause. If you get a chance as well, and if you're not going to be able to make it or you're out of the city, but you still like to go ahead and contribute something to those who lost those who suffered at the Jacksonville tragedy. There are GoFundMe set up. Our friends at Mario Party Wars on their Facebook page has one, and I know Electronic Arts has one as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening, and here's hoping you have yourself a great day.